morning, grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka blenderhd, blenderhd, and this is the show where we'll go over a bit about yesterday's slate. I did pretty well yesterday, and then we'll talk a little bit about today's slate. I mean, it's a big slate, 14 games. I don't know if we need to look at the weather. I don't know. I haven't looked at it much at all, but we'll take a first look. We'll answer some questions. We'll do what we normally do here. Strategy stuff with the YouTube chat people. I see you guys in here. Jupocalypse, Pug Daddy, Matt Mears, Tyler Voss, Zach Hobbs, Card Fan, Santi Multani, Yaz's Army. Good morning, people. You know what you need to do. First thing on the show. Keep my apple juice cold. Hit that thumbs up button. Hit the thumbs up button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Hit everything. Just tap your mouse around. Do whatever you can on the YouTube screen. It helps us out. We got a big day today. But yesterday we kind of had a night off. Unless you played like Showdown MLB or something, or you could have played NBA. But I'm done with that. But yesterday was a day slate. It was an 8-game just during the day, 1 o'clock Eastern. Oh, okay, we could do that. And it worked out well. I mean, I played Toronto stacks. I played a bunch of stacks in the 20 max. Came in 3rd and 5th in the 20 max. Good thing those lines were in the 20 max and not in the larger field 8, because it wouldn't have paid me as much, right? I got like 1,000 and then like 600, and then I came in 7th and 121 single entry, so that was pretty good. But if those lines were in the $18 whatever at large field, it would have been like $100 or whatever. So good luck to me there. That was great. But yesterday we had Andre Drizzy here. He's newer to RotoGrinders. He's on most of the basketball shows right now. No, he took down first place in the backflip on Draftkings with Cole Wheeler. See, you didn't even need Cole barely. You didn't even need Cole. You could have played so many other pitchers, but he was so owned. Cole Wheeler, and then a Toronto-Detroit 5-3, right? Toronto put up 10 runs. Detroit put up 9 runs. Fit in like this. There you go. You're done, right? You're done. That's it. 5-3, Toronto-Detroit. And we take a look down at the top lineups. We're going to see Toronto. I mean, Sal Perez for 3, right? Taijuan Walker, I had a bunch of him, right? Wheeler Walker, right? Toronto, Oakland, 1. Toronto basically this is a 5X, a naked 5-man. So it's a 5-man with 3 1-offs. Utica over here, right? Detroit. So we got a 5-man Detroit, 2 Toronto, and Max Kepler, chalk 1-off over here with Wheeler and Woodruff. Brontosaurus Rex, Woodruff Walker. Okay, so no Wheeler, but still the Toronto. Toronto looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Toronto. Jordan Alvarez at barely any ownership. Double dong against Cole. Then Verdugo and Dozier, who got a 0. You didn't even need. A Hubro over here. Wheeler Walker. Toronto looks like 1, 2, 3, 4. Toronto 5-man. Benintendi 3. Santana nothing. I mean, as long as you had a 5-man like Detroit or Toronto, you were pretty good. Here's a Toronto, another one. Acuna chalk 1-off. Franmil Reyes dong. Drew Smiley's in this one. It's a Wheeler Smiley. RBX 88. Similar. I mean, you're going to see similar type of lineups, right? I had lineups that are very similar to this, right? Because I mean, my top score, I had like 204 and a 201, right? Like if my lineup was in this contest, it would have came in like 8th, right? Like it would have been like right under the Colts or around here, 7th or 8th. I would have come in 7th, 8th, and like 11th, like 7th at 11th. But 8th, 7th only pays in this contest. Well, maybe it would have paid $1,000, maybe. Right, about that. It may have been actually the same. I came in 3rd and 5th in the 20 max. If I came in 7th and 11th, I may have been the same amount of money anyway. Okay, maybe it doesn't matter that much. But that was the key yesterday. Like Cole was not necessary, although he was extremely high owned. And Toronto and Detroit. And it's kind of what I said on Grinders Live. On Grinders Live, I told people what I was doing. I told them, right? I said pitcher-wise, I said Cole's playing Yankee Stadium and not the greatest of matchups. Is he going to be necessary? Right? I thought one of the pitchers in the Woodruff-Wheeler duel in Philadelphia, that's what I was going in that direction, and then Eovaldi and Pineda, because I also played Texas, were probably the two best pitchers to try to find leverage against. So I played some Eovaldi, but I also played Detroit stacks. I didn't play any Pineda, and I played Texas. I didn't play any Duffy. He was overpriced. And then I just found I played Walker and Ryu. Like my best lineup actually had Hanju Ryu in it at 5% ownership. You still have to find what if I'm not playing that much Cole, and I'm not playing Woodruff and Wheeler in the same lineup, and I'm not playing like I need to play other pitchers, right? I played all the Wheeler. I played 70% Wheeler, so that helped yesterday. Wheeler was the top projected pitcher in the bat, raw points wise. So many people were playing Cole. Wheeler projected higher than Cole for raw points. So I just like trust Derek Carty's bat and just jam him in, right? Just jamming all the Wheeler that I can. And then you look at slate IQ. This is what do you do? I see, okay, Washington and Atlanta overowned, right? It shows right here, overowned, right? Who's underowned? Okay, who's underowned? Yankees, underowned. Royals, underowned. Texas, underowned. Who else? Detroit a little bit underowned, a little bit, yes, I guess, over here. A lower win probability. Toronto's up there, but it's a little overowned, depending on what your ownership projections were. But not horrible. It's still less owned than the Washington and Atlanta. So I'd play some Toronto, right? Played some Mets right here. Mets. Played some Twins, right? You can still build lineups, and tried to limit my like Acuna one-offs. I limited my Kepler one-offs, Benintendi one-offs, like the high owned one-offs. I kind of capped. I still played them, but there you go. What's so hard about this, right? I take a look at the projections, the player projections from the bat. Who projects well? Oh, Atlanta and Washington. Oh, okay. Am I going to play all of them? No, because everyone else is playing all of them. So who else can I play that projects well enough that will be lower owned? And those are the teams. Pretty much I played no Washington Atlanta stacks. Played Yankees, Royals, Blue Jays, Boston, Red Sox, Rangers, Mets, Twins, some Cleveland and Detroit. There you go. But my top highest owned, I could even take a look here. What did I do yesterday? Yeah, my top two were the Yankees and the Rangers. Yankees, Rangers, Royals. So I had all the Yankees, Rangers, and Royals. And then the other ones I had a little bit less of. Well, why would I? Yankees, Rangers, Royals. Look, Yankees, highest leverage. Royals, high leverage. Rangers, high leverage. Look, if you just sort by this leverage column, it's literally the top three. The Yankees actually did not project that well point per dollar, but they still had a high ceiling. Rangers projected well point per dollar. The Royals were in the middle somewhere. So that's it. That's yesterday's slate. And we could see here that all the sharp people that towards the top that I'm looking at went over on Wheeler, under on Eovaldi. Well, not that much under. Mixed on Pineda. Still played some Duffy. I don't know how you play Duffy at that price. Some played a bunch of Walker, some didn't. Same for Ryu. Okay, so I'm not crazy playing Ryu. A bunch of these other people played some Ryu, right? I see Neil playing some Ryu. Okay, that makes sense. Flex plays some Ryu. Not concerned. And we take a look at all, including batters. We can see here. Look at this ownership for Washington, Atlanta. Trey Turner, 25% owned. Acuna, 28. Albies 22. So let's look at Atlanta. Acuna 28, Albies 22, Riley 17, Ozuna 12. Right, as a stack. Then we have Castro 15%, Gomes 21% at catcher, Turner 25%, Josh Harrison 12%. Just over-owned. Were they the two best stacks in probability? But not that, yes, but not to that extent that they should be that owned in comparison to others. Minnesota was a little higher owned than I thought. Well, Kepler was cheap, so and of course he hit home run on the first at bat. But Kepler, Buxton 13, Cruz 10, Sano 10. Yeah, actually, if I would have known they were a little bit higher on than they should have been, I probably would have played a little bit less of them. But the Blue Jays were under-owned. Going up against Mike Fiers, yeah. But in comparison, like in a vacuum, Teoscar Hernandez 9% sounds like okay, normal, right? Just in comparison to Atlanta and Washington, just over-owned. Like Nate Lowe was owned on the Rangers, right? But not many others. Willie Calhoun 10%, Gallo 9%. It's the Rangers under-owned in comparison to like playing Acuna and Turner and Albies. Like these guys are like twice, 2-3 times more owned than they should be in comparison. Does it mean you play none of them? No, of course not. The reason they're owned is because they project well. We're saying for Cole, 51%. Why is he 51% owned? Because people don't want to play any other pitchers. But obviously, if you're building expensive stacks, that it's easy then. Play Wheeler, you play T1 Walker, and you build anything you want. That's what less people did, and that's why I do what less people do. Trying to win first place by yourself. That's it. Let's go into the YouTube chat some more. Edward Brown stacked Boston and Toronto yesterday with Houston one-offs. Didn't win any GPPs, but were profitable thanks to the relative value of the Houston one-offs. Yeah, because Cole was so owned. Obviously, in that lineup, you're not playing Garrett Cole. But you see in the results, you didn't need Jordan Alvarez. Alvarez was 2.8% owned, hit 2 home runs, and wasn't in the winning lineup, and wasn't in most of the top lineups. Wasn't necessary. And he was low enough owned that it didn't kill you. Michael Lingenfelter says, played Toronto, Mets, Detroit stacks in my single entry. Unfortunately, Detroit and Toronto didn't end up in the same stacks. Still took down a top 10 finish, but happy with my process with Mets high ceiling and low ownership percentage. Yeah, because I had Mets also. Neil O is asking how I use the slate IQ. I just showed you. But you have to remember, slate IQ is a simulation based around the plate IQ player projections, not the bat. So I have to mentally, these winner, right? This is based on the plate IQ projections. The bat's going to be somewhat different. So based on the point per dollar value, more of a ceiling point per dollar value, I'm going to adjust mentally. Because sometimes, like Detroit, for instance, in the plate IQ projections was lower than the bat projections. So I need to recognize that difference. Detroit projected a little, maybe 15% better in the bat than on most other projection models. So this 0.7% win percentage maybe is really 2.5% based on the bat, which is the projection system that I use. So instead of it being 1.7, the ownership is going to stay the same. There's a slightly better chance. The Yankees, for instance, in the plate IQ projections was higher. The bat was actually a little bit lower. So this Yankees wasn't really 6. If you did a simulation based on the bat projections, their win percentage wouldn't be 6%. It'd be more like 5.2% or something. It's still higher than their ownership, so it didn't matter to me. The Royals were actually a little higher in the bat than in the plate IQ projections. So instead of 5.8%, it's more like 6.5% or something. A little bit, bump it up a little. Still over the 4.1% of the field. So I'm still fine. And I'm still fine playing lineups and players from stacks that are negative leverage. It just means I need to combine them with lower owned pieces. So I'm still, I could still have them. Yesterday I didn't. I could have had some Washington stacks. I could have had some Brave stacks. I chose not to. But on some slates, I sometimes, okay, maybe have a couple of them. But I just have to make sure that I have to get lower owned pieces in them. Rather than go down and play Houston or something against Cole. So like even if there is positive leverage, it's just that the win chances are just so low. I'm just not. I'm not going to spend the money on it. It may be plus EV over a very large sample size, but it'll be such high variance that I'm just not willing to just put the investment in comparison to building other lineups. That slate, it's not that hard. Sort by leverage, and there you go. You're done. If you want to. What teams have a higher chance as a 4 or 5 man stack on DraftKings based on the plate IQ projections versus the field? Doesn't mean I'm going to play 150 lineups and I'm going to play 100 Yankees lineups. No, of course not. I mean, you can. Just understand that if they don't come in, you lose. I mean, you lose almost everything. You just have to be a big enough bankroll to play every single day like that. Rather than diversify. And no, because baseball has a high variance, anything can happen on any day. I mean, we see this in results DB. I mean, take a look. Most sharp players don't, when they play 150 lineups, aren't playing, other than maybe at pitcher, aren't playing 1,000,000% of things. Like Uticap played 38%, played a bunch of the Washington Atlanta game. 41%, but they're not locking in people. If you take a look at Neil here, I mean, other than the pitchers, like no one is more than like 15% owned, exposed, playing a bit of everything. Just playing a bit of everything. Right. We see that. The Colts, right? You look down, okay, 20%, 20%, 20%, 24%, 24% with the Rangers, right? You could see the stacks that he played, right? A lot of Rangers here, yeah. But not like all in. Yes, I'm going to have 150 times whatever it was, $16. It's $2,400. Just all in on the Rangers, all in on the Blue Jays, all in what it. Baseball's way too high variance to do that for large field GPPs. I mean, you can. You just have to be content with going down, losing 2,000 of 2,400 by doing that. And the days that you win, you may win the whole thing. You may win the whole prize pool. You come in first, you come in fourth, you come in eighth, you come in 10th. All your lineups towards there. So the swings are bigger. But obviously, if you're playing professionally, you might sacrificing a little bit of that EV just to lower your variance, have more consistent returns, rather than play 700 times and losing, and on the 701st time, you're winning the entire prize pool. Let's see. Let's see. Ronald Coley, why was there negative leverage on Houston? If they're low owned and go off, Negative leverage. Let me repeat myself. Negative leverage means when their probability of success is lower than what they will be owned. Okay? We have to get this through our brains now. It's not being low owned or high owned. Leverage has nothing to do with ownership. It has to do with ownership comparable to their probability of success. That's it. If a team, let's say tonight, there's going to be a pitcher that's 92% owned. Do you fade them? Well, he's going to be high owned on a 14-game slate. I gotta fade him. No. Well, what's his probability of success? If his probability of success is 98%, which doesn't exist in baseball, he'd be low owned at 92% because his probability of success is 98%. So he's not high owned enough. He's not owned enough. He would get that would be positive leverage. Now, let's say you go down to the bottom. You say there's a player, there's a team, there's a pitcher, whatever. That's going to be 0.5% owned, 0.5% owned. Oh, I'm going to play that guy, right? Low owned. I want to play that. Well, what's his probability of success? Well, if its probability of success is 0.2%, that means he's overowned. At 0.5%, he's overowned. Overowned. That's why you take a look at Slate. I mean, Slate IQ literally shows this. Based on the Slate IQ simulation, on the Plate IQ projections, based on the RG ownership projections. So if any of those things are off, obviously the numbers. Is Texas going to be 2.6% owned as aggregate, or are they going to be 3.4% owned? Well, it's going to change the numbers. So look, Washington, 9.7 chance of being in the winning lineup, the winning stack. The field's going to own them at 10.8%, which means it's a difference of 1.1% between the two. 10% in general. I mean, proportionally. Negative 10%. Atlanta. So a lot of time, look, Washington and Atlanta, two most highest chance teams, stacks of being the winners yesterday. But they were overowned. Not dramatic. Based on these projections, Slate IQ would say that they're somewhat overowned. Turns out Atlanta and Washington were way more owned than even this. Doesn't mean they can't win. I mean, they're the highest team. I mean, look, you combine these two together. 17, 19, what? 18% of the time, based on this simulation, either one of Washington or Atlanta wins. But 22% of the field hasn't. So it doesn't gain you much. As much as taking the Royals, who have a 5.8% chance of winning, they're only going to be owned at 4.1%. Okay. So, but you take a look all the way at the bottom and go Houston. You go, well, Houston is going to be low owned, but look at their chance of winning. 0.7% as a stack. The field's going to own them at 0.8%. It's literally the lowest stack that's going to be owned, but it's still too high owned, according to Slate IQ. Philadelphia, same thing. Oh, there's a 0.6% chance of being in the winning lineup, but they're going to be owned at 1%. Still too high owned, right? In comparison to one another. St. Louis, same thing. But they're the lowest owned. Yeah, but they should be. They have the lowest chance of being in the winning lineup. And even though they're being barely owned, whatever they are owned, they're still too owned. That's what expected value is. The actual probability versus the odds that you're getting. So I'm looking for stacks. I'm looking for pitchers. I'm looking for lineups in total that have this probability of getting first place that are going to be owned at less what they should be. Not over what they should be. As long as the full lineup in general has a higher probability than what they will be owned, give me as many of those lineups as I can. They can encompass 10 different teams, 8 different pitchers, 50 different one-offs. Tyler Voss, when stacking a high leverage team like the Yankees, how much does leverage matter to you when it comes to the secondary stack? And let's say a 3 max 2K entry GPP, whatever fits. The full lineup. The lineup matters. I'll say this a million times. How much does it matter? As much as it should matter. I don't know what pitchers are in there. I'm building full lineups. I don't build secondary stacks. I don't pick pitchers. I've never, this season, I could probably all seasons. I've never built the lineup one by one. Now I may enter it one by one, but I've never built the lineup one by one. That's not how you build lineups in any sport, in any DFS sport, ever. If you're saying what pitcher do I play, then what stack do I play, and then one-ups do I play, you're doing it wrong. The question should be, what lineup are you playing? End lineup. Right? Take a look at DraftKings right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What? How many spots have we got? 10? What 10 players are you playing? That's how you should be thinking. I'm going to play Flaherty, and then I'm going to play Faulty, and then I'm going to play... No, you shouldn't be doing this linearly. I'm going to put in 20 lineups. I'm going to look, all my build rules are there, whatever. I want to put in stacks, 5x at 100%. What are the top 20 lineups? Doesn't mean I'm going to play them. We'll see. I don't know. Obviously, it's going to be some, based on the bat projection, probably Flaherty, Rogers, Toronto. I'm going to guess. I barely looked this slate. Right here, look. There you go. I didn't even do it. I mean, I barely looked, and I know exactly what the lineups are going to be. Flaherty, Rogers. Point per dollar wise, they're the two best point per dollar projected pitchers that have enough raw points. And the Blue Jays are the highest point per dollar. Right? We got the Astro right. That game. So I take a look. Rogers, Flaherty with a Blue Jay stack. Two Boston players in a Altuve there, because we have cheap Jansen in here. We're not paying up 10K for a pitcher, right? Semien, the Blue Jays are kind of underpriced against Urquidy, whatever. So I take a look and I go like, okay, what's the difference between these two lineups? Not much. What? Kyle Tucker instead. Basically, it's Kyle Tucker instead of Hunter Renfroe. Kyle Tucker's projected at 8.06. Renfroe is 8.47 median wise. Does it really matter? No. Here we have Renfroe and Bregman. It's basically the same lineup, just instead of Devers, it's Bregman. Right? Devers projects for 10.04 median, Bregman 9.49 median. Right? Here's Donaldson. Here, I mean, it's pretty much the same lineups because I'm here's Ohtani. Okay, here's an Astro stack with two Blue Jays, Ohtani against Urias, still Rogers and Flaherty. Do we get anything other than Rogers and Flaherty? No, not in the top 20. I'm also going to expect that the Blue Jays are going to be owned. Flaherty and Rogers are going to be owned. I mean, like, these lineups may not have enough leverage. I don't know. I don't know what the ownership projections are going to be. So I'm building lineups. Do you see here? I'm not like what two pitchers, what not. I'm looking at lineups, like lineups. Let's say we don't play. I want to build 20 lineups, but we don't play both Flaherty and Rogers. So what do those look like? Right, so I put the cap them at 50 just to see. Let's just take a look, see. Okay, we still get Rogers Flaherty, but just let's see. What's the first one without either of them, or one of them? Give me something. Okay, Peterson and Snell with a twin stack. It clumps them together. Yeah, that's what I hate about this. It'll clump them together in 20 lineups. So you get the twin stack, but you're losing 10 points in projection here. But still, he's a 5-3. Peterson, Snell, 5-3. Twins and Blue Jays. Who says this isn't a bad lineup? We'll have to see what the ownership looks like. Here's a way. If the Twins are lower owned, but not the low owned, You fade the 2 chalk pitchers. You're still playing kind of chalk Blue Jays bats, and you're playing a kind of somewhat off the board Minnesota stack. Somewhat. They'll still be owned. You're playing Simmons instead. I don't know. You have to see what the starting lineup looks like. But this is what I mean by looking at lineups. Like this is how I build lineups. I'm not building lineups by just tapping one by one. Who fits here and who fits there. A 14-game slate. I'm playing 5-man stacks. Here's Peterson, Manaea. Similar type of situation, right? Minnesota, Toronto, Minnesota. Of course, I'm only building 20 lineups. You could look at lineups and build 100 of them, build 300 of them. Cap, like you could do this, for instance. Let's do this as an example. Let's go. Where's my pictures? Okay, just as an example. Okay, I'm going to go to build rules. I'm going to unique players. Just leave it at 1. Leave whatever. I'm going to put lineups to produce 100, just to make it a little bit quicker. I'm going to set my hitter max exposure down to 20, and my pitcher max exposure to like, I don't know, 40, right? Something like that. Just to see, just to basically, so I don't have to go and cap players' ownerships, just so I'm not getting all Blue Jays, all Flaherty, all whatever. I'm just doing this just so I get them more diverse. So just like show me top projected stuff, but not like all of the same thing, right? So I have unique players 1, just like show me a little bit of everything, right? Maybe I even lower even more. Maybe I go 15% that and 35% that. I mean, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm just doing this just so it doesn't show me like just all Blue Jays, right? Just all the time. It's like, oh, I'm just jamming all the Blue Jays. So maybe 40-20, maybe just to get. We also don't want like it to like cap at a certain point and then just never give you Blue Jays, right? So let's build 100 lineups. Just to look. This would not be my 100 build. You're not building lineups. You're just looking. You're researching. That's what we're doing here. To look at lineups, not look at players. There are players in lineups. Doug Montgomery asks, when using lineup HQ, is setting projections to bat X projections all I need to do to get the bet? Yeah, that's all you need to do. You don't need to upload anything. It's already in there. Tutorials always say upload. Well, you have to upload your lineups, right? You have to upload your CSV for the actual DraftKings lineups. You don't have to upload unless you're changing projections, unless you're building your own, unless you're downloading them and changing them and uploading them again. If you're not using custom projections, you never have to upload projections at all. If you have the bat, all you're doing is just selecting what there you go. Bat X projections. Done. They're in there. Craig Toe is asking about diversification. On Monday or Tuesday, you showed how to differentiate your team stacks from one another. You used the Rays as an example and said a 10% primary stack. You said it is a 10% primary and 10% secondary. You don't want Meadows in all of them, so you set his max ownership to 15%. Will he be in 15 of your Rays stacks, or maybe he's only 10% of your stacks, and maybe 5% is a one-off in other team stack? Yes, he could be in both, either. Okay, let's see. Okay. Let's look at the stacks. We got Toronto, Washington, Houston, Yankees, Twins. Okay, we got a bunch of stuff. Whole bunch of soon you'll be able to click on these and it'll go to your lineups. Soon, they're working on it for lineup HQ. I would like to see all my Astro stacks, see all my Yankee stacks. We have no combos, we're just using 5-mans. So we just take a look at the pitchers, right? Basically, Peterson, Flaherty, Rogers, Manaea, Gallen, Snell. Okay. Okay, so obviously, towards the top of fantasy projection, 118. So like 118 is the top. What's the bottom? If I don't jam in Blue Jays and Flaherty and Rogers, let's see. 95. Okay, not horrible. Right. Here, all the way at the bottom. 48-1. Right? Leaving 1,900 on the table, playing the Giants, stack, Goldschmidt, Merrifield, Bogarts. Like we don't have ownership on this, but this is probably a way low on lineup. Almost to the point where you don't even play it. Yeah, some of these lineups at the bottom are not excellent. There's an A stack. There's more Giant stuff at the bottom. A's at the bottom. It's just because basically I've told it to just like at a certain point, don't give me any more of a certain player. I mean, like 20%. It's gonna, and most of these Blue Jays are in stacks, so I'm not going to get them in one-offs. I'm just looking. I'm looking at lineups. What comes in? So we got Blue Jay stacks at the top. Probably get Astro stacks. There's Astro stacks. Astros, Blue Jays, Astros. Right. I mean, it's going to use up all of them in the top. Here's the Tatis lineup. Still Rogers, Flaherty. Right. I mean, it's going to give you all these kind of whatever. That's what you're looking at. Astros, Madrigal. If he bats second, then maybe he's a punt play at second base. Right. Looking through all of here. Here's a Red Sox stack with all three outfielders: Castro, Maldonado, still Rogers, Flaherty. Because normally you do this and you still look at the ownership also, but we don't have ownership yet this early in the morning. But I'm just showing you an example of just like I'm looking at lineups, not players. Who do I want to play? Now I'm playing 10 players in a lineup. Then I would choose. John Carr, how many different stacks do you typically try to get exposure to in 20 max contests? The answer is it doesn't matter. One of the most often asked questions, and it doesn't matter. I could do all 20 of the same stack. I could do one of 20 stacks. What does it matter? There's no correct answer to that question. Depends on how much diversification you want. Right? As I say all the time, what's the difference? Here's two lineups. If I told you that the expected value of both lineups are the same, let's say they're the same, they're exactly the same. Now here's two lineups. Let's say there's 20 of them. I've them hidden. Like they could be of different stacks of different everything. I could open the same expected value. This is an Astro stack. That's a Blue Jay stack. This one has Flaherty. This one doesn't have. I mean, the combination of all the things in the lineup together equal the same expected value. So let's say you find 200 that are about the same. And you get to play 20 of them. Which 20 do you play? Mathematically, the answer is it doesn't matter. They're all the same. They're all equal. They all have an equal expected value. Now, if you could play all 20 Blue Jay stacks, if they're all equal, 5-man Blue Jay, you could. Now the lines are correlated to one another. But if you play this out 100,000 times that you picked, you'll have the same amount of money at the end. Now, obviously, if you play 20 of the same stack, you're going to win a lot one time and lose a lot the other times. But over the long run, it's the same expected value. So what does it matter? So asking those types of questions there's no correct answer to that. Play 20 plus EV lineups. The highest EV lineups, yeah, you can. So happen to be 8 Red Sox stacks. Okay, then so be it. You want to play 4 stacks of 5 of them? Okay, as long as they're plus EV lineups, what does it matter? Michael Dompier says, I look at Slate IQ at stack leverage, which is pretty much always the same depending on the slate size. Let's say the highest leverage is 5-3 at 28%, then 4-4 at 14%. I realize it might not be this simple, but does math say to go all 5-3, assuming Slate IQ is accurate? No. You need to understand the difference between expected value and diversification. Most questions in DFS, people get wrong because they think there's a correct answer. How many stocks do I buy? If you ask that to a stockbroker, they'd look at you funny. How many stocks do you? What kind of question is that? Buy whatever stocks you think are going to go up, buy. Well, what happens if I only think it's going to be 2? Well, then buy those 2. But what happens if I'm wrong? Well, since you only bought 2 stocks, if you're wrong on if you're wrong on one of them, you're gonna lose a lot of money. Oh, so should I pick like 6 more stocks? Said, well, do you think they're gonna go up? Well, I don't know. Said, well, you'd rather have less of 10 stocks than more of 2 stocks. If your goal is to lower your variance for the times that you're wrong versus the times that you're right. You know what? If you knew the future for perfectly, whatever the stock is, they're going to go the highest. You put all of your money in it, but you don't know that. So if 5-3 stacks show the highest expected value over the course of 1,000,000 trials, it also loses often enough that I'm going to do all 155 threes. So now you're locking yourself out of all one-offs. If one guy triple dongs in another game and you don't have one, he's part of a 5-man stack, but nope, the whole stack doesn't get there. The 3-man stack doesn't get there either. You've now burned 150 lineups. Are you fine doing that? That's perfectly fine. So then I don't play all 5 threes. Then I should play half 5 threes. Well, play whatever one you want. If I told you that there's a die, it's a 500-sided die, and it pays 1,000,000 to 1 if you guess it correctly. So the expected value on that die is on that bet is insane. You put down $1. You win $1,000,000, a 500-sided die. If you get, I guess 387, and it comes out 387. Okay, then we go to a 6-sided die. I'll pay you 8 to 1 on that. Right? It should pay 6 to 1. Well, I'll pay you 8 to 1. Okay, you get a little expected. You get whatever. You get a little nibble. That's plus EV. Let's say you have you have a $5,000 bucks, and that's all you have to your name. And I tell you, okay, you have to make $1,000 bets. You have to make $1,000 bets. You can't make anything lower than that. So you have $5,000. You only have 5 of those bets. What are you gonna do? Well, I can tell you that I'm going to be betting on the 6-sided die and not the 500-sided die. Because the likelihood of me running, yes, it's a higher yes, so much expected value, but I'm going to go broke by the time, right? I can only realize that expected value. Now, yes, theoretically, on each roll, I get so much more, but then I'm broke. If I don't get it right in 5 rolls, I'm dead. The other one has less expense. Yes, it's less. It's still positive, but it's less. But I'm much more likely to make money short over the long run without risk of ruin in the first bet. Now, let's say you could bet $1 and you have $5,000. Well, now I'm much more likely to make bets on the 500-sided die that pays me $1,000,000 to 1. So likelihood if I have a $5,000 bankroll, that I'm gonna hit it 10 times, right? 50, right? 500. So 1 out of every 500 times, right? I have 10 times that amount. So I'm more likely to do that. Which one is correct? The correct answer is if you're down to your last $1,000 and you can only make one of those bets, is to bet on the 1,000,000 to 1. Even though you're going to be wrong 499 times. That if you just went by expected value. The problem is that you can't just go by expected value because there's a finite amount of money that you have. So playing the highest possible expected value lineups may not be tenable for most people. Can you withstand those swings? Can you play some of those types of lineups? Yeah, in combination with lower types of lineups. So when you see on a slate where, oh, this team is going to be high owned, over owned, but high probability, like if you just X them out, all you're doing is introducing variance. You're adding, you have higher expected value lineups, but your swings are going to be ginormous. I'm going to play all 1% lineups. Yeah, it comes in every once in a blue moon. So you're going to lose 700 slates in a row before you hit the one that you make all the money in. Do you have enough money to stand losing 700 slates in a row? If you do, it's plus EV. If you don't, you're broke by the time you realize it. You can't. It could be the highest EV lineup there is. But if you don't hit it immediately, I mean, those types of lineups, you shouldn't be playing a ton of them. Some people make that mistake. I think more people make the mistake that they play too safe lineups. Oh, this is the highest probability. I'm going to play that with the chalk one off and the chalk two pitchers. And, oh, why aren't I winning GPPs? They were the best plays. Yeah, you're going to min cash often, but you're going to slowly bleed your money away. But there's also the type of people that, oh, I'm just going to X out all the top three teams and the top three pitchers and then build from there. I'm going to play 150 lineups, spend $2,400. Oh, why did I lose $2,200 on a slate? And then the next day lose another $2,200 on a slate. Then on the next day lose another $2,200. I'm playing plus EV. Yeah, and you probably are. You're probably playing a ton of plus EV lineups. But you realize all that in 1 out of 500 slates, which means the other 499 slates, you're losing all your money. So those are questions of diversification. Just like a stockbroker, a mutual fund person would tell you. Sure, if you could pick the right stocks that go up the most over the next 10 years, it'd be much better if you just compounded and put all your money into those stocks. But you're not sure. So how much risk do you want to take? Would you rather aim for trying to get 50% returns over the next year by jamming all your money into 3 stocks that are highly volatile that you may think are plus EV, and it may be absolutely correct? Or would you rather only put 5% of your portfolio in each of those, and then the other 85% you're putting into stuff that is lower return, but more solid, more likely to give you a return? It may only be 3%. It may only be 4%. But you're more likely, as a whole, having 15% of your portfolio into those risky assets. You lower your return, you're lowering your ceiling, but you're also lowering your risk of ruin. So these types of questions are all based around diversification. If you were to play the top, if you were to just maximize for expected value in baseball, you'd probably lose almost all of your money 99% of the time. Like literally 99% of the time. Because the highest EV lineups are obviously the lowest owned lineups that have the most amount of leverage, where you're stacking against both of the top 2 owned pitchers. And if you ran it out a million times, it shows a 36% return, a 48% return. Oh, I should be playing those lines. Yeah, but all of that return happens on one slate. Like it doesn't even come, it comes in last place every other slate. So you can do that. That's why I said you can. You can play those lineups. Just know that the likelihood of you losing is extremely high. And when you win the whole thing. You come in first place. And now you're going to play 20 lineups. Do you want to play 20 of all those types of lineups? You can. That would theoretically, if you had an unlimited bankroll, that's what you should be doing. But no one has an unlimited bankroll. So how much risk do you want to put into your 20 lineup portfolio? I don't mind playing a couple that are like that. I'm not going to play a couple that are like, oh, I guarantee myself a min cash type of like. I don't play those lineups. You bleed your money away with those lineups. But I'm not looking for like the lineup that is like 1 in a million. That when that thing happens, yes, I win $100,000, but I've spent so much money in the process that it still comes out to be insanely profitable. Just doesn't happen that often. It happens so rare, once a season, if that. You did the math, that would be the highest expected value lineups. And if you play 150, then you have to expect to lose. You play 150 lineups and you play like that, you're going to lose 2,000 a slate for, I don't know, 100 slates in a row. So do you have $200,000 to do that? I don't. But that mathematically would say, yeah, you should do that. Well, I mean, bankroll is a thing. Uncrabby Cabby. Hey, Jordan, I followed your process of selecting players for the player pool. Set stack percentage to equal 100. Example 4-4-4-3. The team stack percentage to equal 100. Then make sure to have enough players at each position and still get constricted by the optimizer. Try to run 150. What the hell am you doing wrong? Because you're constricting your settings too much. It's not that complicated. Can you make cheap stacks with cheap pitchers? What is there a setting in there that's not allowing you to do that? Is that what you want? You have to look at the settings. You're telling the optimizer what to do. So obviously you, the user, is doing something wrong. There's something that you're telling the optimizer to do that it can't do mathematically. Yes, I want to play 50% of the cheapest stack and 7 million% of the cheapest pitchers, but I want you to use all 50,000 as salary. Well, how many those lineups don't exist? So maybe you have to lower your minimum salary in order to get those lineups. I want to get a projection. I want to get all of these people, but I only want to have a lineup that is 20% owned in total. But I want 7,000% Acuna. You can't mathematically. You're telling the optimizer, you want a guy that's higher owned than what your lineup constraint is. So that's why I'm giving you nothing, or I'm giving you 3 lineups. That's why you should go through the tutorials. You should go through each individual setting. You should learn how to use the software. Then figure out what lineups you want to make, and then go in and tell it what to make. Once you actually learn how to use lineup HQ, you'll see that 95% of people that use it incorrectly. But most people complain about the tool. There's been rarely a time, I've been using lineup HQ for probably 4 years. There's rarely, unless it's a bug, like someone's projection is like buggish. Sometimes there are bugs. But outside of that, there's never been a time that I've not gotten lineups that I wanted to get. That it has not been my fault why am I getting 80% of this guy? It's like, well, because he's the only shortstop in the pool and I'm trying to jam it in. Oh, okay. Now you need to add shortstops or be fine with getting 80% of this guy. Okay. There's never been a time where I understand exactly how an optimizer works. It's a knapsack problem. You have to tell it. You have all these settings to say, give me the best projected lineups using these variables. And being that if I set a 0 or I set a nothing, a default, it's just going to give me whatever's optimal, whatever gives you the most amount of median fantasy points. Hence why before, when I showed this example of 20% hitter exposure, 40% pitcher exposure. Just like I'm gonna, so I don't have to go in and cap individual batters and everything, just to go in and just show me a bunch of stuff, right? If I left it at 100, it's just going to show me all Blue Jays and all Rogers and Flaherty. But we have tools. We have tutorials on these. We have hours upon hours in Roto Academy. Hours. You could subscribe. Hit the link in the description. Get $10 off your first month. Literal hours. Upon hours, upon hours, upon hours of videos. All with Lineup HQ. All with the top players. Me, Scarl Patrol, Britt, STL Cards, Noto. It's all this back catalogs of hours upon hours upon hours of video. Hours upon hours of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of words. Everything. All you have to do, it's in premium. All the content is there. I don't know why people don't watch it, right? So you could do that. And I think I have someone at the door. So I'm going to get out of here. Get out of here early. So Grinders Live coming up later today. NBA, MLB. Hit the thumbs up button on your way out the door. And I'll see you. I'll see you next week, because I'm here always. 11 a.m. to Eastern, Monday through Friday, for the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.